Today, in this session, we will explore how the continent can reconcile the resource wealth with energy poverty via innovation, equity, and collaboration. So this is how we're going to run the session. We have 3 keynote speakers. After the speeches from the 3 keynote speakers, we would have a 6-man panel discussion, and if time allows, we may be able to feature a question or 2 from the audience. And then finally, we shall have some closing takeaways, and we will ensure time for both depth and interaction. So without wasting much of your time, I would like to introduce our first keynote speaker. He is Mr. Rashid Khan. He's a program manager, Energy Technology Solutions at Ernst & Young. His presentation is titled Opportunities for Digitization Within South Africa's Energy Sector. Mr. Khan will be speaking to results from a report which is being published by GIZ. Ladies and gentlemen, join me in welcoming Mr. Khan to the stage for his presentation.
Thank you, Peter, and good morning to everyone. Just building on from what Peter has introduced, I think today's presentation is really talking about a report that has been commissioned by the Energy Partnership. And this report is titled Opportunities for Digitalization in the South Africa Energy Sector. In terms of the agenda for today, we'll talk a little bit about the purposes and the commissioning of the report. Why was it commissioned? Who commissioned it? We'll talk a little bit about the key stakeholders and the advisory board that was part and parcel of the works that was carried out. We will also look a little bit about the research focus areas. And finally, we will end off on the various opportunities that were identified. And we will talk about what next in terms of dissemination of the report. Before I continue with the agenda, what you see up on the screen is a QR code for the report. I do ask that any of the colleagues here today, if you want to scan that QR code, you can then get a digital copy of the report. So I'll just leave that on for a moment or 2. Yeah. So essentially, as I started off, this particular report was commissioned by the Secretariat of the South African-German Energy Partnership. And as you know, or if you don't know, this is a partnership between the German Federal Ministry of Economic Affairs, as well as the South African Department of Electricity and Energy. And this secretariat is hosted by the GIZ, which is a very well-known, very reputable donor funding institution, and has played a major part in South Africa in providing support services in various initiatives and programs. So this particular report, the title says exactly what it is. The main company which I represent, which is Ernst & Young, was commissioned to really explore digital opportunities within the energy value chain. And there were 5 sort of reasons why this particular report was commissioned. First being just to understand what are the various potential opportunities, the various digital opportunities that there are there to enhance energy security. It was looking at those technologies and those potential opportunities in how it can support the transition within a more decarbonized energy system. It was also exploring, this role of digitalization in this value chain, from generation through to distribution, through to serving end customers. And then, in particular, there was a focus on understanding how can one unlock some of the socio-economic benefits, and what are those spin-offs when it comes to job creation, skills development. So to that extent, what had happened was there was an advisory board that was established, and this advisory board consisted of some of the organizations that you are seeing on the screen right now, which includes Salga, Saneri, Safia, etc. And throughout the research that was conducted, there was various engagements wherein the various stakeholders and the experts from these various stakeholder organizations provided input into what are the research topics we do need to look at, what do we need to investigate, validating and discussing some of those opportunities, and also helping to disseminate the information contained within the report. Now, when we commenced the work, we realized, we're going to barely scratch the surface, and digitalizing the energy grid is a very vast topic. And when one looks at a lot of the various reforms that are underway in South Africa at the moment in opening up our energy grid, what we do find is that there's a bit of a lack of focus in deeply understanding how can one really digitize the energy grid and what are the benefits that I'm going to get out of it. So the research team consisted of a number of experts along with the advisory board that sort of whittled down those topics to a number of focus areas. And we had in excess of 15 to 20 different focus areas. However, we chose the 6 that you see on the screen, and they were predominantly focused on firstly looking at asset management and how we can improve the reliability of the asset life cycle using various digital tools. We also looked very carefully at, and it's often a forgotten topic, is cybersecurity. When one is digitizing and when our grids are becoming a whole lot more smarter, often the expertise and the way one looks at cybersecurity and how one can implement various cybersecurity controls, protecting the grid and ensuring various threats out there that could be felt by various organizations, utilities, municipalities that are attempting to digitize the grid. What are the opportunities on that particular topic? Then we did a focus on understanding what would be the best way to optimize the energy grid using advanced metering infrastructure solutions. And part of that was looking end to end at various gaps and issues within the South African market and how best to address that. Item number 4 and 3 talk to one another. A big part of digitizing our energy grid and getting energy to move in both, and measuring energy in both directions is the infrastructure. So looking at the network on how devices communicate back to the internet, understanding the type of data centers we need in South Africa, etc., was another focus area. And then finally, focus area 5 and 6. 5 is what we call market-driven flexibility. And it's a cheeky play on words. And when we talk about flexibility in this topic, it's not in the true technical sense, but more around in South Africa, over the last 2 or 3 years, we find that one of the key ways that we're going to bring private energy generation onto the grid is through what we call third-party wheeling, that allows your independent power producers to connect to one side of the grid and to be able to sell to customers or off-takers at another point of the grid, whether it be within the Eskom grid or extended to municipal grids, etc. And wheeling is a very topical at the moment. There's various barriers preventing wheeling from realizing its true potential in South Africa. So we looked at some of those barriers, but we looked specifically at how some of the digital tools can overcome those barriers and what we're seeing happening in the future. And then finally, there was focus around AI in energy, and AI being very topical these days. What is its relevance to the energy value chain? In looking at those various research topics, what culminated or what emanated from the research was a variety of opportunities. And that's what you see mapped out before you, from generation through to measuring and accounting. And the report goes on to explain those opportunities, why those opportunities should be looked at, what will allow us to embed such opportunities within South Africa better. Therefore, you know, I really encourage everyone here today and online and in the other venues to go through the report extensively and deeply understand those particular opportunities and the framing around them. I think there'll be a lot of value in that. Looking ahead, the report is a very comprehensive report. So in order to disseminate a lot of the topics, a lot of the opportunities and the information in those reports, what we have upcoming in the next 2 to 3 weeks, there are 2 webinars that will take place. The first webinar is on the 16th of October at 2 p.m. South Africa time. And this webinar is about how do we get advanced meter infrastructure solutions right the first time. Because in South Africa and in Africa, we see a lot of these projects being implemented, and unfortunately, a lot of the utilities and the municipalities are not realizing the benefits of such programs and such projects. So there will be a discussion and a dissemination of information and a perspective given on what we believe is required to get such programs and projects right the first time. And then specifically, we will focus on 2 unique use cases. The one will be around how we use AMI to unlock what we call this market flexibility, and the second one around cybersecurity. Then around sort of 2 weeks later, on the 29th of October at 10 a.m., the second webinar is titled From Data to Decision, and it's really about how do we harness the various digital tools for smarter asset management. So again, you know, I do encourage everyone to attend those webinars so that you can engage much better with the content of the report. With that said, I'd just like to thank everyone here today and Peter for the opportunity, as well as the team from the GIZ that enabled the commissioning of this report through the Energy Partnership. Once again, I do explore everyone here to comprehensively study the report and be part of the upcoming webinar sessions.
Thank you, Mr. Khan, for taking us through the report. We definitely would engage with the results and see what opportunities lie there for our energy transition. We will engage later when we have a panel discussion. If you have some questions for him, we will be able to take that in the next session. It's now my honor and pleasure to invite the second keynote speaker. You can see Prof. Gotan Tsai from Guangzhou Institute of Energy Conversion. Is a director of Energy Strategy and Carbon Assets Research Center. Please welcome Professor Tsai to the stage to make his presentation. We know his work from what he has shared with us, but it will be good that he talks about some of the work that they have done. In this presentation, he's going to be talking about China's digital energy transformation, analyzing present status and future prospects for sustainable development. I think it links very well to what Mr. Khan was talking about. From the South African perspective, let's hear what is happening in China, and hopefully we can try and draw some parallels from these two presentations. Professor Chan.
Thanks, Pete. Thanks, Pete. Good morning, everybody. It's my great pleasure to introduce China's digital energy transformation. And I will introduce the global energy transition and China's action. As we know, nowadays all over the world, the emission reduction and deeper decarbonization has pushed a global transmission to renewable energy. And in China, has proved the dual carbon goals, achieving carbon peak emission by 2030 and achieving carbon neutrality by 2060. And especially in the last month at the UN Climate Change Summit, China announced a new round of nationally determined contribution. We can see that by 2035, the non-fossil energy will exceed 30%, and the total, the wind and the solar will be more than 6 times that of 2020, with the aim to reach 3.6 billion kilowatt, and new energy vehicles will become the mainstream of new vehicle sales. And also, China is a front runner in the global renewable energy sector. We can see from this figure, China contributed more than 40% to all of the increasement. And also, China in the past 5 years tried to build the nine renewable energy basement, and all this renewable energy basement increased very quickly. We can see at the end of March 2025, China's installed capacity of renewable energy reached 1.9 billion kilowatt, account for 57.3% of total power capacity. Especially the wind and solar power reached 1.482 billion kilowatt, surpassed the total installed capacity of thermal power. It's very, very, very important. And also, China formulated the energy technology innovation roadmap, integrated the fossil energy technology and the clean energy, and made the energy consumption sector, like the industry process and the transportation and the building, integrated this technology together. So, and the second is China's the digital transformation of energy. As with the large-scale development of new energy, China's energy and power system is facing more operational uncertainty, and this uncertainty which forces the digital transformation. And China now is actively integrating digital technology into the energy sector, promote the high-quality development of AI plus energy, and also set the goals by 2027 and by 2030, the different goals. And also China is transforming and upgrading the energy sector with digital and intelligent technology, especially upgrade energy infrastructure, like to the traditional power plant and the oil and gas field and the coal mining. We can see these two examples. Like one is Huanan Smart Power Plant, and the Datang, the coal mining, the command center. And also to create a digital energy use ecosystem to build the smarter energy city and the communities. Like this one is Jinfeng Technology, Beijing Yizhuang's carbon neutralization smart park. This is a platform. And also we fostering new business form and model in the energy sector based on the close connectivity, coordination, and interaction across generation, grid, load, and storage chain. Like I say, we can see this example. It is located in Guangdong province in Zhaoqing High Technology. It's integrated the energy source, network, load, and storage in integration. It is be more energy efficient. And also we produce also the VPP, the virtual power plant development very quickly, and to increase the regulation capacity of the power system to improve the comprehensive energy efficiency. We can see these two examples. It is this one is the first city level VPP in China is operated in Shenzhen, and this one is the first province the VPP in Hainan province. And also we try to construction of new power system that allows the information sharing among all stakeholders. And this is like this one. It is the plan for the construction of a new power system in South China power grid. We can see they have a lot of the tasks we have to do. And also we in China they propose to build a global energy internet based on the advanced technology. We will build accelerate the construction of large scale the cross-border and the intercontinental power transmission channel to form a backbone grid of global energy and internet. For our institute, the GIEC, the research, we have do a lot of research in digital energy transition. Our institute located in Guangdong province is in Guangdong, Hong Kong microgrid Bay Area. And our institute research is mainly in the new energy, renewable energy, and the carbon reduction and energy strategy. And we do a lot of the research like the big data energy management and decision making, advanced digital simulation, and the development of intelligent management and control technology for energy system. So based on this the research, we have also some the proposed the cooperation action like from China, Africa in digital energy. Because as we know, Africa actually have abundant solar and wind resource. So the digital transformation, it will help the Africa to accelerate the transition to renewable energy. So we can, so I think maybe we can have a lot of the cooperation area. Like the first one, we can develop the integrated the solution for resource assessment and energy planning based on the digital technology. And also we must shift from one way the generation to smarter coordination. We must coordinate the source, the grid, and the load, and the storage, enhance the system resilience and the economics, and enable very high renewable share, and create a market signal for storage and demand response, and link the power with transportation and the industry. And also we can do the research about the smarter energy system based on the digital trends and the AI technology to build an intelligent management system, and also develop the distributed smart energy management solution adapted to Africa grid. And also we must focus on the capacity, the building. We can carry out the multi-level education and training the cooperation, because actually our institute have organized many the international training programs for more than 20 developing countries. Like this one, we do the research last 2 years, to demonstrate and promote China's advanced PV power generation, smart O&M technology, and renewable energy planning tools to better load countries share China's balance and measure in rapid PV industry development. We can see we have a lot of the partner. And also, last month, I'm so happy to attend the ANSO Africa Hub for Science and Innovation was established last month in Addis Ababa. I think this is a very important platform. We can based on AAHSI to carry out the different cooperation and carry out in depth the cooperation. So let's work together towards a greener and sustainable future. Thanks for your attention. Thank you.
Thank you, Prof. Tsai, for that insightful presentation. We will engage him later in our discussion. Now I would like to call our third presenter. She is Roba Onaisi. She is from UNIDO. She's a project administrator, Division of Energy and Climate Action. Her presentation is titled Sustainable Industrialization Hubs, Catalyst for Energy Access and Low Carbon Development. Ms. Aruba.
Thank you, and hello to everybody. So as Peter just said, my presentation will focus on sustainable industrialization hubs and their role in achieving energy access and low carbon development. First, for those of you who are not familiar with UNIDO, so the United Nations, I'm too short. The United Nations Industrial Development Organization is a specialized agency of the UN with the mandate to promote sustainable and inclusive industrial development. So we support our stakeholders across different areas of intervention, including technical cooperation, policy advisory, and fostering partnerships to create environmentally sustainable industry, economic competitiveness, and shared prosperity from the industrial sector. Zoom in on the Energy and Climate Action Division, where I am based. So the division works with developing countries to accelerate the transition to low carbon and climate resilient economies, and work on three main axes, including the low carbon transformation of the industrial sector and decarbonization of heavy industries, building resilient supply chains for clean energy technologies, and enhancing energy access for industrial development. So from UNIDO and the division's mandate, sustainable industrialization is a key pillar in the transition to low carbon energy, as the industrial sector is responsible for around a quarter of greenhouse gas emissions globally. So it is crucial to align industrial policies with clean energy goal to achieve simultaneously economic growth and clean energy transition, and therefore creating jobs, boosting competitiveness, and at the same time reducing emissions. And from here comes the role of sustainable industrialization hubs, which are geographically concentrated industrial zones that cluster enterprises and infrastructure for clean tech innovation, decarbonization, and inclusive economic development. And these hubs can serve as centers to enhance the manufacturing and innovation segments of clean tech value chains, like renewable energy, hydrogen, critical minerals, etc. They can also be hubs for an industry decarbonization and production of low carbon products, and thus boosting the competitiveness, especially in the international markets for low carbon products, and at the same time increase the access to a reliable energy for industrial zones, but also for surrounding communities. As the session today is focusing on Africa, I'm going to give two examples that we are implementing in two different African countries in the area of sustainable industrialization hubs. And the first one is in South Africa, and it's called Fostering Low Carbon and Positive Energy Industrial Spaces to Accelerate the Just Energy Transition in South Africa. So it's a project funded by the government of Flanders, and we launched it this year. We started implementation this year in 2025. So it aims to support the low carbon transformation of industrial spaces in South Africa by promoting the adoption of distributed renewable energy and energy efficiency through innovative business models. So one of the components would be focused on enabling, like creating an enabling environment through enhanced policy and regulatory framework, and also providing technical assistance for a pipeline of investment-ready projects in distributed renewable energy, and also implement two pilots to demonstrate the impact of low carbon approach in industrial spaces. The second example, it's a project that is still under preparation, so we haven't got it yet, but it's under development. And it aims to accelerate the green industrialization through sustainable energy production and storage in green energy and industrial zones in Ethiopia. And the aim is to promote sustainable industrial development hubs by strengthening low carbon emission and energy positive industrial parks, including enhancing the embedded generation of renewable energy and strengthening local clean tech value chains. So I kept my presentation very brief because we will have more chance to discuss more in details later in the panel discussions. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Onaisi, for that update on the work that you're doing at UNIDO. Ladies and gentlemen, that concludes our keynote presentations, and I think that also gives us a basis for our further discussion in our next segment. It is now my pleasure to introduce our distinguished panelists. I would ask the three keynote speakers to come and join the panel, and I'm gonna introduce three more panelists. So we're gonna have 6 people. We can see already on the screen. So I'm gonna start by asking Professor Azo da Silva to come and join us. Welcome, sir. Please take a seat. Maybe this one. Thank you. I'm gonna ask Mr. Robin White to join us as well. And I'm going to also ask Prof. Raj Naidu to join us as well. And of course, Professor Chai, Ms. Onaisi, and Rashid, please. Yes. I'll ask our three panelists, the ones that have just joined the team, to introduce themselves quickly and just give us a brief background of their work in research, and then we can start with a discussion. I would like to apologize before we actually proceed that it's Prof. It's not Prof. Chai who is joining us. It's Prof. Wang Peng. My apologies, Prof. So we would like them to introduce themselves quickly before we start the discussion. Maybe we can start with Prof. Da Silva here with me. I think you have a mic.
Mic is here, okay.
Yes, please.
Thank you very much. So the question that was assigned to me, I can read, isn't it, for them?
No, just introduce yourself.
Okay. So I'm called Prof. Da Silva. I am the Deputy Vice Chancellor Research and Innovation for a university called Strathmore in Kenya. And I am also a UNESCO Chair for Climate Change, Resilience and Sustainability. Yeah, and I'm happy to be here.
Thank you. Yes, sir.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Robin White. I'm from the Luxembourg Institute of Science and Technology, or LIST for short, where I essentially try to design our strategy and our innovation plans and roadmaps, for example, in terms of R&D associated with, shall we say more globally, the energy transition, but also specifically hydrogen and CO2 related technologies. Thank you.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Raj Naidu. I'm the head of Department for Electrical, Electronic and Computer Engineering at the University of Pretoria. We're just down the road from here. I'm also the director for Smart Grid Research at the University of Pretoria. I'm glad to be here. Thank you.
Prof. Wang?
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Peng Wang. I come from Guangzhou Institute of Energy Conversion, Chinese Academy of Science. My background is energy and environmental engineering. Our institute as the think tank for the government, and we do research, like Professor Chai said. We do research AI energy and steel energy model, energy scenarios for different pathways for the global country and the local countries. That's my brief introduction. Thank you.
Yeah, I also need a mic, but I will use this one for now. Yeah, let me sit here. Prof. De Silva, you wanted to get straight into business. So I'm going to start with you. Policy is very important for energy transition. My question is, what kind of policy can help Africa to achieve its energy transition?
So I think the first thing, if you recall, the last time we spoke, some few minutes ago, I mentioned that if Africa is not seated at the table of power, it is in the menu. And then still, this is the main thing. As long as you put people from other continents to say what is the best for Africa, then you've got a problem, you know. Yeah, so that is the first thing. But the second thing is that I think in Africa, are used to a kind of NGO mentality that you get some money, you go there, do some stuff to people in need, and you take pictures, shout in the LinkedIn, and that's it. You move. Then that whatever was put there, perhaps nobody thought about sustainability, and then it just collapses. Yeah. So I think we have to be very honest with ourselves, and then to know that if we want to be at the level of the globe, we have to bring the standards of the global to Africa, Yes. And then this I find is very important. One example, example makes things very clear. One example is this. There is an institution called NL. They are company, they are utility, they are in Europe, they are big. They have enough transmission line to go to the moon and back twice. So what did these people do? In 2019, they went to Brazil and they bought 19 million connections. All the São Paulo area, all the Rio de Janeiro area, all the Fortaleza area, and all the Brasilia, which is Goiás area. And they did the 4Ds that I had mentioned. You remember the idea of training people very well, doing the digital twin, boosting the morale by training people, etc. So when you do that, the things profit and you make money, and therefore your country it grows. You see, so that is the example I had. There is something called triple helix. That is when you put together academia, government, and private sector. Silicon Valley is an example. The beauty of it is that it is replicable. Bangalore, is doing more than the Silicon Valley from San Francisco now, because they replicated the thing there. Why not replicate then the Savannah Valley? Isn't it? Or bring people, they think for Kenya perhaps, for some, and then increase, and it's the same thing. You have academia, pick people from MIT, Caltech, etc., and private sector, take all the people doing super fine like IBM and say Google, etc. Then finally you get government that can give you facilities, makes things safer, airports, and etc., etc. It works. So we should not expect miracles. We just see the thing that is done, and we do with them, and eventually we become knowledgeable, and we have transformed the thing. That is it. Business, not NGO, to change Africa.
Thank you, Prof. I have a question for Mr. Robin White. I know this was not covered in the presentations per se, but it relates to green hydrogen. There's a lot of talk around green hydrogen to decarbonize our industries and so on and so forth. And I just want to find out what opportunities and challenges green hydrogen present for Africa in terms of cost, mineral utilization, and global competitiveness. Those three issues. I know.
Easy answer. No. Green hydrogen, I don't know, maybe to make it a little bit more interactive, what do people perceive by green hydrogen? Because, shall we say, in the European Union context, it has quite a specific definition, which I think is a little bit unfair in the sense that it includes a variety of different energy sources or electricity sources that you would need to then power, shall we say, the splitting of the water molecule into hydrogen and oxygen. I think when you're looking at an African context, the availability, as we saw on some of the slides of renewable energy, sun, wind, various different locations, there is the opportunity to leverage those renewables, wind and solar, to power devices called electrolysers, which would then electrochemically split water into hydrogen and oxygen. And there are a number of studies that indicate, for example, if we take a classical market perspective, that in certain locations, under certain scenarios, for example, in Mauritania, and also in South Africa to a certain degree, that cost competitive or levelized costs of hydrogen would be competitive on the global stage, potentially, given other market dynamics, for example, carbon trading, etc. Yeah, so already it would be possible if the finance and also the availability of equipment and infrastructure, etc., was en route to produce so-called green hydrogen in the region of 4 to 5 euros per kilo. That's still quite high in comparison to the conventional way of producing hydrogen, which is from either coal gasification or steam methane reforming, which are normally in the ballpark figure of 1 to 3 euros per kilogram of hydrogen. So in that context, I think I mentioned the market dynamic. We need to have, in some ways, a market dynamic that supports the rollout of green hydrogen technologies and understands that, at least from a chemist's point of view, the thermodynamics of splitting water are incredibly energy challenging, shall we say, and therefore increase that cost automatically versus converting fossils and fossil fuels into hydrogen, where nature has already done, shall we say, the energy compaction into those molecules, and hence why we can already produce quite low cost hydrogen in that context. In the context going further, shall we say, to the system level, using hydrogen, for example, to buffer a electrical grid, whether this is on a microgrid level or on a national grid level, where we have a very high penetration of renewables, solar and wind, as I said, you could, for example, avoid what we would call load shedding, for example, and use hydrogen as a way to buffer extreme production scenarios, for example, the variability on a day-night basis, the variability on a season basis, at large scale, kind of megawatt kind of installed storage capabilities, and then on demand using, shall we say, the inverse of an electrolyzer, a so-called fuel cell, convert the hydrogen with oxygen coming from air to then produce the electricity again on demand, so to say. Going further than that, in terms of the development generally speaking, we can also use hydrogen in a green sense also to defossilize, I think is an important word, not necessarily decarbonize, because in some sectors we need carbon, and where that comes from is also another point, but to convert molecules with hydrogen into other important platform chemicals, for example, other clean fuels, other greener ways to produce fertilizers, is also an opportunity if we can leverage the low-cost electricity that can be generated from renewables in an African context. When it comes to minerals, coming back to the technology, for example, that's, shall we say, being predominantly proposed to produce hydrogen, so this electrolyzer, and there's a number of different variations, but just to give you an example, we have so-called proton exchange membrane electrolyzers which use iridium and platinum, so very scarce, very expensive metals within those devices to essentially catalyze the reactions that we're interested in terms of splitting water into hydrogen and oxygen. And these metals, for example, number one, are scarce. They're on the critical raw materials lists all over the world, essentially. But as an opportunity in Africa, and in that context, iridium specifically, and also platinum to a slightly lesser degree. In South Africa, for example, we have, I think, over 60%, 70% of the world's global reserves of iridium and platinum. Conversely, at current usage, shall we say, loading of iridium in conventional on-the-market technologies for PEM electrolyzers, if we were to deploy the technology, just in the European context, taking PEM electrolyzers, given the plans at the European level targeting 2030 to 2050, we would consume those resources by 2 times just to supply electrolyzers in the European context, not considering the global context. Therefore, in principle, from a strategy and innovation perspective, there is the opportunity to use those resources, hopefully equitably, so that local communities can receive the value in some way. For example, the big mines in Springs, Impala Platts, for example, these kind of things are often owned by multinational companies, so there's that extra dynamic in terms of bringing value to local communities in Africa from natural resource utilization. But there's also the innovation perspective in terms of developing technologies and concepts for recycling electrolyzers at end of life, and therefore generating value in that context. And maybe just to summarize, before I think we should consider making hydrogen, we should somehow merit order everything in the context of we should be focusing on electrification first, and then to make sure that we have electrification across the board, accessibility to low-cost electricity for all, and then to look at where we can, shall we say, profitably and equitably and ideally environmentally or ecologically sound routes to produce hydrogen when, for example, we have enough essentially very, very low-cost electricity available, and it shouldn't be prioritized over the access of electricity to communities, for example.
Thank you for that explanation. It's very important that we don't prioritize hydrogen production. I think that brings me to the grid. Prof. Naidu, what are the challenges and enablers in accelerating the smart grid transition so that we could then be able to add the flexibility, the power to X that, we saw as some of the pathways, including the green hydrogen production?
Okay, thanks for the question. I think it's an important one. So the best way to answer this is to look at our traditional grid. We've got a traditional grid that's grid constrained, that where our infrastructure is falling apart to some extent, and many other challenges, access to electricity and so forth. I think it's a very exciting time as far as the energy sector is concerned, because if you look at what's happening around the world and the disruption that's happening, it's absolutely amazing. So it can literally transform Africa from where we're at, where we're grid constrained or don't have access to electricity, to a point where everyone has access, we're managing our grid well, it's a self-balancing, it's self-managing. I mean, that's the ideal, that's where we want to go to. But obviously, if you look at our current grid, there's a lot of challenges. And, we've done the smart grid roadmap with Sanedi in 2022, 2023, and you're welcome to contact Sanedi to get access to the document. But, given the challenges that we have and where we want to go to, we looked at 3 key areas that would need focus from us. So the first area is on asset management. Now, we know that municipalities are really battling to manage their assets, and part of the problem is you have a lot of, in the past you used to have really experienced and skilled staff that have been in the organization for 20, 30 years, and they would know if a transformer is humming a certain way, they would know, what type of fault the transformer has. And unfortunately, we've reached a point where there is a skills gap, but that can be addressed through condition monitoring, digital twins, and so forth. So that's a huge enabler. We see that being a huge enabler for the grid. The other focus area that we looked at is renewable energy. So, access to grid being a huge problem, and we saw renewable energy as being a solution to that problem. There's already a number of pilots that are happening around the country where you've got decentralized grids, either in microgrids or just off-grid topologies, where there is access to communities that would otherwise take maybe 10, 20 years to get to. So that's a huge area that the grid or the continent can transform. And if you've got energy, you've got economic development, there's a direct correlation. There's been many studies that's been done there. So that's really the second focus area, is how do we accelerate renewables? And if you look at, so from an asset management, digital twins perspective, you also need communication technology. So the third focus area we looked at was advanced metering infrastructure. Now, there was some mention of that from the earlier participants. Now, in order to get AMI in place, it means that you have to have meters. Meters require capital investment, so you need to put together a lot of, you need to really put a lot of finance, ensure that the finance is in place to procure the meters, have it installed, have your back-end system, head-end system, meter data management system in place to be able to get all that information. And I mean, the information that you're going to get is rich. You're going to have voltages, currents, you're going to know whether the grid is constrained. And then in that way, you can start moving towards a virtual power plant. Now, in a virtual power plant, you're going to have, on the one hand, you have your traditional grid, where you've got all these sensors. On the other hand, you've got renewable energy that also has sensors installed. You'd be able to forecast when, what the weather patterns are, what your predictive, how much of energy you're going to get for a particular day, next day in advance. You've got battery storage that can be brought online. And in South Africa, we've got, the hexing system in the Western Cape. That's 20 megawatt, 100 megawatt hour system that's already being piloted, and obviously there's huge opportunities for scaling up. And then you've got demand response on the other hand. Now, the really smart grids, what smart grids does is it brings all of these technologies together, and it brings it in a way that everything can work together in harmony. So we see smart grids as a huge enabler for accelerating the energy transition in South Africa, not just in South Africa, but in Africa. Now, obviously, it would be much better if we can, because there's a lot of things that need to fall in place in order to enable this. We need to, have finances, and triple Ps would be a huge plus for us in accelerating the transition. Working together with the continent, we've already got many power pools within the African continent, but I think just leveraging on harmonizing standards and so forth would give us a huge advantage. And obviously alignment, so if we work together, we can accelerate this, and together with our international partners, obviously it's going to make a huge difference in enabling Africa to go that much further quicker. Thank you, Peter.
Mr. Khan, your previous or your presentation that you made was in digitalization is quite close to Prof. Naidu's input right now. I just want to find out if this concept is not going to deepen inequality. I'm talking about access to data, the cost. I'm also just thinking about how the technology is accessible. We are trying to transition and enable sustainability in the continent. All these technologies come at a cost. What could be that pathway that doesn't leave people behind or deepen the inequality? What would you say? Is that something that you touched on in your studies? Your perspective on that, please?
Yes, thank you, Peter. In terms of that inequality gap and understanding the cost of digitizing, you know, as South Africa, if we look at the South African context, you know, if one has to completely roll out an advanced metering infrastructure solution throughout the whole country, you are looking at in excess of 90 billion rand, I think, some of my calculations, right? And so the way one deploys this technology, we've got to be very smart and strategically think about how we focus investment on priority points or priority customers. And, you know, as part of the report that we mentioned and we encourage everyone to read, one of the opportunities that we see in the country is if there was an investment on looking at all the large power users in South Africa, and if I estimate them very roughly through looking at the Eskom distribution grid and the municipal grids, you know, I'd put the number at about 100,000 large power users versus probably 8 to 9 million, you know, users in South Africa. So they're quite a small percentage, right? And if one really invests in your smart meters, your smart breakers, your various sensor technology on those particular segments, holistically and completely, you could very quickly digitize the grid, up to 80% of the grid very quickly, right? And that doesn't require 90 billion. That requires much less of an investment, maybe 2 billion rand worth of investment. But the benefits that one will get out of that is far-reaching, far beyond what we can think. And it will enable the country to apply various use cases when it comes to renewable energy integration, whether it be loss identification. Often I see in a lot of the newspapers, we take a particular area, Soweto or this area, and we're not collecting money, and there's lots of losses, etc. But you just need one large power user to commit an act of crime and steal very sophisticatedly the power. And that's the equivalent of thousands and thousands of homes. So when you have the technology to actually monitor that large power user, you can drive efficiencies in the country unlike before. So by sorting out that particular customer segment and driving the benefits for utilities like Eskom and the municipalities, you're going to find that the benefits, the revenue benefits, the loss reduction benefits, etc., you're going to use some of those benefits to actually assist in funding much wider rollouts metering technology, smart metering technology, sensor technology to those customers, you know, that might not look like there's a business case to do that. And in turn, you know, when one does need to apply load control through what Professor has mentioned now, you know, you've then got that technology there and available and implemented. You know, similarly, you know, like when we look at the transmission grid, and there's a big discussion around bringing private sector investment, we're also going to need that on the distribution grid and around the metering side. And coming up with very innovative financing models, I think is going to be the order of the day. We're seeing a lot of that in the municipal environment. Just given some of the circumstances we find some of the municipalities in. And again, you know, these kind of cross-subsidization models where there's a big focus on correcting all the large power users within your respective grids and making sure you bring those losses down. You know, I just, as a practical example, one of the municipalities I work for, you know, we by very targeted interventions, revenue enhancement interventions using AMI technologies and various types of analytics. You know, we were able to identify customers that owe the municipalities about $500 million, one customer. You know, so that's what you're dealing with. So I think the way to sort the inequality gap is to really focus on one of the customer segments and correct those. Those are the large power users, and to apply the benefits that one will obtain out of that in subsidizing your technology rollouts to, let's say, your medium to your small power users, and then to just carefully look at the various innovative financing models that one can apply within the country slightly more holistically and in a very pinpointed approach.
Wow, thank you for that response. Definitely looking at different financing models. I have a question for Ms. Onaisi. You spoke about the industrial hubs. What role can sustainable industrialization hubs play as catalysts for energy access and low carbon development?
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, indeed. So, as I briefly presented, these industrial, sustainable industrialization hubs, they have a concentrated energy demand coming from the clustering of the enterprises in one geographical area. And therefore, they create a very attractive environment to invest in energy, clean energy, and shared infrastructure, like renewable energy or energy storage, etc. So they enable to plan an integrated energy system that match industrial demand with clean energy sources. And this provides a stable and reliable source of energy for the enterprises, for the industries, and also the surplus could be distributed to surrounding communities. So this is beneficial both for the industries themselves and the nearby communities. So, so this embedded generation of renewable energy on site is what enables for this reliable energy access, and this is particularly crucial for regions that suffer from challenges with energy access. The second point with sustainable industrialization hubs is that So by integrating these clean energy sources in the industrial processes, and also including energy efficiency and circular economy principles, etc., they enable the production of low carbon final products. And this is especially crucial for international markets where we have more stricter policies, trade policies and climate policies. So having low carbon products is very important for exports and for opening up international markets. And the third point is that these hubs can also serve as like centers for clean tech innovation, so for manufacturing of clean tech components. So they really become like focal point or like hubs for green innovation. And this will create green jobs and stimulate skills development as well. Lastly, to achieve the potential of these sustainable industrialization hubs, there are multiple factors that need to be taken into consideration. So first, data-driven analysis to support decision-making, and we talked a lot about data and the role of AI, also with, like what Rashid was saying before, how AI and data can drive sound decision-making. We need well-designed policy frameworks and a governance structure for these industrial hubs to encourage investments. And of course, we talked about innovative finance models. So this is crucial because it requires high level of capital mobilizations and also appropriate mechanisms to allow for global technological dissemination. Thank you.
So will it also be possible to encourage trading within the industrial hubs as well? Is that one of the considerations? I'm just wondering if, you know, when you have an industrial hub, a number of businesses there, and, you know, they are generating power for self-consumption, would they also be able to trade amongst themselves?
Yeah, that's the idea, to have the power themselves and also trade it, and also to for outside business.
Okay. I have a question for Prof. Wang. It relates to our energy resources. In Africa, we use or we have a lot of fossil fuels, but we also have a lot of renewables. So how can Africa harmonize primary and renewable energy resources with environmental priorities to drive sustainable development?
Okay, thanks for your questions, Peter. Yeah, that's really a question we are more clear about. Yeah, based on my experience in China, we has the resource like coal, similar with Africa, and how we, in the energy transition process, how we harmonize the primary energy and renewable energy based on this protecting the environment. Yeah, that's really that's really a dilemma, and in the future how we draw these questions. I think first for the Africa, there is very rich in the renewable energy, and I think I have three aspects for answer these questions. Okay, I think first is no global countries all try to reform this energy system. Certainly, the renewable energy the cost of renewable energy is more decreasing than before. And second, primary energy certainly is compared with the renewable energy. If we ending the carbon cost, the renewable energy is more competitive. And still, for the renewable energy development, it is not only supply the energy for economy, it is still a new industry. And based on this renewable energy development, for Africa, it can develop more like a green industry, from the silicon or wind power installation. A lot of, the Miss said, it can create a lot of green jobs. That's very helpful for the green, for the economic development. The third, I think that how we see this energy transition, certainly it is economic and society and still energy system transformation. It is a new revolution for the new economy. So how we using this renewable energy to develop the circular economy, like how we see the wind energy and the solar panel and the batteries through the life cycle analysis and do this assessment. That can be helpful to reduce the air pollution. The fourth, I think that we do not only help the government to do the energy planning, we still to improve the government's governance. If the government can allocate different targets for the province and for different, created a very good environment to attract more environment, to more investment, that's really helpful to manage this industry, and we can develop the ecology-oriented development mode. That's really very helpful for develop this industry. And based on this opinion, I want still propose that if how we do this, certainly it is we need to more pay attention to the technology transfer and still capacity building, and still like other panelists said, how we attract more investment and finance. Maybe the new financing, not only the public, but still the private fund. So that's in the future, we want to get the green future. Certainly, like China has developed a lot of new technologies, like other countries, all have own new technologies. But how we transfer this new technology to be the industry, to be on land, on this Africa, that's our our common sense on this. So we think we can work together to do this business and to do this, make this Africa more greener and more cleaner. Yeah, that's mine. For these questions, and we can get more co-benefit for this. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, I would have wanted some questions from the audience. However, we are running out of time, and we started our session a little bit late. I would like to really thank our keynote speakers and the panelists for their insights. These topics, you cannot exhaust them in 1 hour or 1.5 hours. They need more time. So I want to believe that some discussions can still continue with the panelists now that they've been introduced to all of you. And so I really want to thank them for their participation, and to the audience as well for listening. I think for me, there are just a few key takeaways. Everything requires financing. We need to look at financing models that are going to bring down the costs and make sure that the transition is equitable as it's supposed to be. Our policies are going to help in making sure that happens. We have to look at different ways of industrialization, especially when it comes to the minerals and the resources that Africa is endowed with. So with those few remarks, I really want to thank everyone for attending our session and wish you a good afternoon further. Thank you so much.